based on your background, what do you think of these drones?
Welcome to the Business After Hours, where the ties loosen, the suit relax, and we talk business without the boardroom. Grab your favorite drink, kick back, and let's dive into the world of business after hours.
All right, welcome back to the Business After Hours podcast. We're joined here with my co-host Jared and our guest Jay. How are you gentlemen doing today?
Doing great. And after seeing that intro, I wish I just got a bottle of Buffalo Trace for holidays, and I wish I would have brought that up here to the office.
Yeah,
can't go wrong with some Buffalo Trace, that's for sure.
Definitely not.
That's one of the tours that I want to go on down there is the Buffalo or the Bourbon Trail.
Bourbon Trail.
Oh, yeah. Love to do that one day.
So
Jay, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So, my name is Jay. I started my career in the military. I was an intelligence officer. I was enlisted before then. I was infantry, and then somehow got pulled to the dark side of intelligence. Did counterintelligence for many years all over the world. It was quite fascinating. And but I worked a lot with special operations in that. And one of the things that I really loved was how to build high performing teams and how they were able to do it and bring people from all walks of life. I mean, I had some folks that had PhDs and I had some folks who had GEDs, but it didn't matter. Right. We were able to get the absolute best out of people. And so eventually when I left the military, I went into corporate, went into sales, and eventually went into management, and quickly had my team kind of go from, mid-pack to high. And they were like, well, how'd you do this? And I was like, things I learned in the military around building high performance team and working with high performance teams. And over the years, I continued to grow through the ranks and show success in those areas, and started doing talks. And I created a methodology called the CLEAR methodology, looking at, your culture, your leadership, how you're engaging with your employees, the type of agility that you have within your organization, and your rewards and recognition, and how you do that. And people started calling me out of the woodwork, even though I was still a VP of sales, at the company that I was at, and they were asking for help. And I got a lot out of those conversations, and just helping people and help them, steer their organizations as business leaders and individuals in companies. It's really easy to get tunnel vision, and you're constantly drinking from a fire hose. So, kind of having that outside view of things really helped a lot of people. And so I decided at some point that was where my passion lies, and decided to start Leadership Canvas.
So I do want to ask, given your background in intelligence, I think it'd be a disservice to our guests or our listeners without asking what.
I still have some folks that I'm connected with, and we're on Signal, and
don't tell what you don't tell.
No, I would never, and I would never put them in a situation where I would ask them anything. I know how to skirt the subjects in a way that allows you to get some insights. And it's quite interesting. There's so much information out there that I've heard everything from they're trying to find like nuclear material.
Yeah, heard that one too.
Foreign, it's domestic, it's this, it's that. I don't have an answer. I'm in the same swirl as everybody else. What I do find fascinating is that it's actually been happening for years, but now we're just starting to see it, I guess, to this extent. So, in my mind, and putting my old hat on, between the, balloons coming from China, the drones and everything else, I'm like, okay, is this a collection?
Sure.
And if so, I know our capabilities to counter collections. So so there's so many different facets that you could look at. If it is foreign, then maybe you let them operate there, because you're actually figuring out their capabilities, right? And you say,
right.
Well, we know that all of our stuff's protected, and so now we're actually just reverse engineering what you're doing. Or I don't know, it could be anything. But yeah, it's a fascinating one. I'll be interested to see how it rolls out.
So do you agree with what Trump said the other day? Because he said the government knows, they're just not telling. I mean, I would assume they would have to know.
Well, when I heard that, my thought was, okay, if they know, then that means a couple of things, and they're not telling us. That means a couple of things. Either A, they don't want to cause panic. So if it turns out to be true that they're looking for nuclear materials, if you say in this tri-state area, right, like, hey, for a rogue nuke that came from Ukraine, on some ship, you're going to have mass panic.
Oh yeah.
And so, I would hate to be in that position,
Sure.
But also throwing up hundreds of drones in the sky and not having a cover story for it would be pretty stupid.
I
So
would agree.
I would say,
I would agree.
in my old world, like, we would have thought through, like, okay, we're gonna have to do this. We got some dangerous shit going on right here, right?
Right.
What's the story? Like, oh, we're just testing, it's US. We're just testing our drones. We're doing this, it's a company, the drone technology today is fascinating. You see them, they can do like fake fireworks. They can do images in the sky. I'd be like, hey, it's a private company that's doing this, leading up to New Year's, right? Don't panic. Meanwhile, we're looking for a nuke.
No big deal. No big deal.
But I would have a cover story, right? Because you don't want mass.
Sure, of course.
That. So yeah.
Those drone shows, they're wild. I saw one coming home. First time I saw one, I didn't realize what it was, and it was just this like fictitious image in the sky, and then it like changed shapes like instantly, and I was like,
UT does.
Yeah.
UT does it at night at the night games. They'll put on a show. Yeah, at the UT, where they'll do like the Longhorns and that.
Yeah. It's a cheap way, to like, you're not burning. Fireworks is pretty cool to see. I've seen them at some races and stuff. I follow Formula One, so I watch, see them at some of the races at night and all of that. But the other conspiracy theory or theory, it may not be a conspiracy, it could be true, right? Is we're going to get visited by aliens.
I've heard.
I thought that was supposed to happen like a week ago.
Well,
right.
2027 is what they're saying, and so they're saying they're trying to, sensitize us to seeing things at night, and things in the air. So I don't know, man. I just keep my head down, control what I can control.
That's all we can do.
The big whistleblower, Lou Elizondo, who has been, doing a lot of the UAP stuff, actually was in my unit. So he's probably too big of a deal now for me to reach out to. He's got a book, so that might be.
Oh yeah.
And he's all over.
You could reach out and get him on the show for us, and then we could ask him the questions, right?
Yeah. Let me interrogate him.
Got it.
We'll get you on that.
You got the whole show.
Make it a whole show. Yeah.
We should do it. We should do it on the Bourbon Trail.
Boom! I like that idea. I'm down for that. Well, back to business. How have things been for your business? First of all,
yeah, pretty good. I launched in January of 2019, and I had some clients already kind of in the pipeline because of the conversations that I've been doing. So with that clear methodology, I started to be asked, like, how are you doing this, particularly in the sales arena, and so I was starting to go to like conferences and things and do talks. And so I just reached out to some of those folks. I said, look, I was working for my employer. I couldn't do like a side gig. I couldn't formally help you as a consultant, or come and help you assess your organization. I hung my shingle. I'm no longer with them. So if you're interested, so that was good. I kind of had the pipeline before I started the business. I had 11 speaking engagements for 2020 already lined up. And so that was great. But then COVID hit. So all of those got canceled. And I think just like everybody, I preach agility, and I had to get agile myself. It was quite a scary time, when you're off on your own and running your own business. So really navigated through that, which all that causes me to kind of go online and kind of figure out, how do I deliver this? How do I do remote consulting? How do I assess an organization without being able to walk the halls, kind of thing. So I just had to pivot there. But what was great is I was able to quickly kind of scale up those capabilities to be able to do that. And now that just enhances what I do today.
Probably a lot easier being remote now, right? I mean,
some of it, so all of my stuff is rooted in like behavioral assessment. I mean, that's what I'm trained in, and that's what I really, yeah, as a leader, I would intuitively and kind of connect with my employees and kind of understand, like, this particular, leading sales teams, yeah, they like bonuses and stuff like that, but this person also likes this type of recognition. This person likes this type, this is how you can get the best out of this person. And so it's kind of rooted in behaviors.
Sure.
So I do behavioral assessments for organizations and like organizational surveys to kind of kick things off. I like to press the flesh, and particularly problems where there's like a lot of like issues. But it does allow me to like start things online, or maybe if it's not as toxic or intense or whatever they're kind of dealing with, I can do remotely. But it's also nice to be able to, shake hands, walk the halls, be able to say like, hey, you've got your culture and your mission, vision, values posted on here, but you're not living into it based on what I'm seeing and what I'm feeling and what, the conversations that I'm having. But it does help because it makes it kind of 360. I can kind of meet the clients where they are, and be able to address that accordingly. But 2020 was a big, hit, I think, for most people's businesses. Was able to navigate through that and have been able to grow, from then. But it did kind of set me back because, the speaking is where I can talk to people in large audiences. And my hope there is that they take away a couple of nuggets. If they need my help, great. If they don't, and they can take a couple of nuggets and enhance their teams, then even better. So I did miss that because I was pretty excited about that. But so far things have been pretty steady. We're also navigating the George Floyd at that time, and just everything that came from that, and organizations trying to understand, gosh, I have a diverse group here. Like, what do I do? What do I need to do here? How do I address this?
Today's social, yeah.
So sort of that's, sort of the social aspect of things, so it was interesting because really 2020, 21, 22 was very heavy. Like, how do I get that inclusivity here and make sure that everybody's welcome, which is already a part of like my leadership philosophy anyway. So it was kind of like lift and shift, but there was a real heavy emphasis on that piece. So we started doing like a lot of kind of like DEI work through that inclusive leadership, and kind of looking at your culture and just making sure that, just like what we learned in the military, right? Like, man, like, I want to know, like, what's your strengths, what's your weaknesses? Here's my strengths, here's my weaknesses. How do we come together as a team and are even better together,
So when it comes to the topic of of diversity, I see obviously military, there's no diversity training. You do it. Like, it's just like happens, right? Because you don't have a choice. I see sports.
Yeah.
You don't hear anything about diversity training amongst athletes. They just do it. Why is it that the corporate world needs the diversity training when everyone else, it seems like, can be just fine?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. I think, and I mean, so I caveat this with, I got out in 2005, so I don't know what it looks like today in the military. As far as training, I think they do have some training that they have.
We had to do every quarter of EO training.
Oh, you do? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so every quarter there was one quarter that I think we did something different, but I can't remember. But we definitely did some type of EO training.
Yeah. Jeff, going to your question, I think that, if you look at the history of the military, so I'm biracial, and so I've seen the lens of kind of like diversity through, the different parts of my family. I'm half black, half white.
Sure.
And, when my granddads were in World War II, it was segregated, and then they went through desegregation before the country, went through desegregation. So the military's kind of been ahead in many ways. And I'm sure during that time period, it was pretty rocky,
Sure.
Probably just trying to figure things out and bringing cultures and backgrounds and, breaking through stereotypes. I mean, one of the things that I really missed and loved about the military was, I mean, we have crazy humor, right? We got dark humor, we have great
Oh
humor.
yeah.
And so you if you would listen as an outsider, you'd be like, oh my gosh, this group,
Correct.
like they're picking on the Hispanic guy, they're picking on, Jay's that he's the half breed, they're picking on but like it was all like blazing saddles, more like, we're just making light of like these stereotypes. But I love you like a brother, and I love you like a sister, kind of thing.
I try to do that with my son, because I always feel like, that's the way I grew up with the military as well, is everybody messed with you. So it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know, for me, that feels like a norm. And so
Yeah.
he's a little bit on the more sensitive side. So it's like, you got, like it's a norm when you get out, but maybe it's just a norm in the military.
Yeah.
I think
And
it's still because like my oldest son's going through that because he just graduated college and now he's got his big boy job and he's in a trade. So rough neck people, kind of like military, and he's had to go through the little hazing or whatever, the passing of the torch that older men do to younger men.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've had to talk him through that. Like, hey, this is just kind of a rite of passage. You just you got to take the licks, man.
Don't take it personal,
right?
And everybody, they want you to lick back, right? Throw punches back. I think with sports, same thing. They desegregated sports. That was a rough time. They got through it, and they started seeing like, I'm better together. So that's kind of the phrase that I just think of in my mind, is that we're all better together.
Correct.
And that's where our strengths as Americans lie, is if we stop all this crazy infighting and picking on, this and that, just because your viewpoints might be different. I could care less if your viewpoints are different. Correct. How are we gonna work together? It's just respect, right? So I think a lot of corporations. Sorry.
How do you attack something like that? Like, because obviously I feel like it's almost just culture, right? Or it's brought about us. I think even in high school, you think you get picked on. Obviously, there's bullies and stuff. Yeah. But it's like, how do you combat something like that feels like it's so natural? You know what I mean? It feels like it's a natural thing for older people, more seasoned people picking on the less seasoned people. It just
that's a good question here. So I think, when it comes to like corporations, at least the areas that we would kind of delve into is we would always take it from like, what's your overarching culture here? And there are, we all have unconscious biases, and I have mine, and they've changed over the years. And, and there are some where sometimes I'll look at somebody and, judge something and be like, whoa, hold on, Jay, like, judge them, like, don't judge somebody, right, just based on what they look like or anything like that. I think for me, it's just raising awareness. That's number one, is just raise awareness on what our unconscious biases are, what are the stereotypes that get reinforced that may not be real, right? And just things like that. For me, it's just like, just open your mind a little bit around those types of things, and then just hang out with some different people, right? Like, and get to know each other as human beings. I always just try to take things to the human level, right? Like, being in different countries around the world, at the end of the day, a lot of times I would see like, listen, this family just wants to get along, right? Like, they just want to get on with life, right? And like, there are certain things just that's just humanity. And so I really just try to, I don't, get into like, culture wars and wokeness and all, like all this other stuff. For me, it's like, how do we want to treat each other as human beings? If I'm coming in and I'm a business leader and I'm in a position to hire and fire and coach and mentor people, then I need to make sure that I don't have a bias where, somebody comes in, maybe they're from a different socioeconomic class. I mean, I've come from a very, very poor family, so I can attach that, but they don't see that, right? They see me sitting there as an executive. If I've maybe changed over the years and I say, well, this person's, gosh, they only have a 2-year degree. I don't know if they can do this job. Like, one of the things that I did in some of the companies I'm working with is we did away with degrees, because we looked at like, what's the will and the skill of the individual, right? What's your training look like? What's your mentorship program look like? If you don't have that, let's put it in place, because you have incredibly talented people out there. College isn't the way, right? And so, but they could be that rock star for you. So it's really just kind of breaking through those biases that we all have, so that you're giving that person that you're talking to the full attention. You're not clouded and already maybe giving them a couple of check boxes or minuses for something that you're perceiving, right? If it's, somebody that I'm hiring, they're from the LGBTQ community, and maybe I came up in a environment where, I didn't agree with that. I didn't like, it was negative. Like, why? You're looking at this person as a human being to bring into your organization.
Right.
Who cares about this other stuff, right? Like, let's look at what their capabilities are and everything else. And then let's also just make sure that, the culture that you're bringing people into, very much like the military, is it's purpose and mission driven. And so if you focus on that purpose and that mission, it's the culmination of the people that are within your organization that are going to get you there. So that's how I kind of take it on. It's more around that. And 9 times out of 10, people, like, I try to demystify it too. There's so much noise about DEI and, the latest thing, right? Oh, that's a DEI hire, and I think back, I was one of 2 Black executives out of about 4,000 people. And, in this day and age, like, I don't want people looking at me like, oh, well, that's a DEI hire. Like, dude, look at what work I put in, to get where I'm at. Right. So, like, I just kind of want to roll back that language and that infighting and everything else and say, no, man, if Jay's sitting there in that position, it's because he worked his ass off to get there. Right.
Yeah. He earned it.
If so-and-so over there, is a white person, they're in that position because they earned it. They deserve it. Right. Like, so I try to break through the noise, honestly.
Jay, what do you think, out of all your assessments and dealing with business leaders and everything, what's a common downfall that you're constantly having to, like, correct or bring up within leadership?
Consistently, it's a disconnect between what the leadership thinks are the issues and what the employees want or what they're looking for, and what the employees say is reality. It reminds me of, the officer that would never go down to the motor pool and talk to the privates working on the Humvee, right? Like, hey, they're fine. They've got what they need. They're getting 3 squares a day, right? Like, they've got everything, and then you go down there and they're like, hey, our tools don't, half of them are stolen, right, or missing. Like, this is happening, that's happening, there's a supply issue. And so those assumptions, a lot of times when we do our organizational survey, you see a real disconnect where it'll say, like, what are the 5 things that you think are going well? And what are the 5 things you think are not going well here? And there's a complete misalignment between the employees and the leaders. And so just highlighting that and bringing that to their attention is a big kind of aha moment when we're working with
how do leaders solve that without bringing you in? And I'm not trying to cost you business by any means.
No. Yeah, no. I think it's a great question. I think the thing about being in leadership positions is you are constantly drinking from a fire hose, right? And you got all these priorities. And I think just accepting that maybe you don't have the pulse of what's going on, and how can you create the time to go and do that investigation and do it in a way that, check your ego at the door, right? Like, it's not about you as a leader, it's about you in that position, enhancing your organization. So taking that time out to really get to know the people, actively listen, solicit feedback, take that feedback, and then act on that feedback. It takes time, it takes effort. And I think a lot of times leaders are exhausted. And so, trying to fit that in, quote unquote, soft skills often gets pushed to the side. One of the things that I saw this year, which was quite interesting with my business, is this was going to be my biggest year ever. So towards the end of the year, I'm putting together proposals as people I've been talking to. Budgets are released in January, and then we sign contracts and we go off. And probably out of 8 proposals, 6 of them lost their budgets around learning and development, consulting, like all these areas. They cut those budgets. And the people, my points of contact there were like, this is going to be a disaster because we know we have a fire going on here. And they think, leadership coaching and development through an LMS is going to solve that. It's not. They're going to click through that as quickly as they can and get back to those emails or whatever they're doing, or the 50 meetings that you've put on their calendar, right? So, so I think, you know, that's been a particular challenge. But so I think that organizations and leaders sometimes look at these soft skills, these culture pieces, the development pieces, and set those aside and think like, all right, we got to go make revenue. Not realizing that if they just take a little bit of time, focus on these areas, you get the revenue through your people, right? So, you know, that's where I say, you know, I connect that, you know, business strategy to the people strategy. So if they just incorporate that, you know, you're talking about maybe a few hours a month, incorporating that, it can go a long, long way to help them.
Well, as we basically wrap up here, I want you to just give us a little plug in for your company, if you will, so that we can highlight and hopefully get you some business.
Yeah, sure. No, I appreciate that. So yeah, you know, we help leaders build high performance organizations essentially. So we use our methodology. We'd love to come in and really kind of assess and understand the culture. I think it's also often an aha moment, you know, when people are like, yeah, we're, you know, people driven, we're patient driven, or whatever your end user, right? You know, we're customer focused and all this other stuff. And then you really dig in there and you're like, but that's not where we're living into, you know, and the result is this, you know, for your customers, for your employees and everything else. So we really love to get in and kind of dig in there and then help them with that roadmap on how to correct that. And then work with key individuals within the organization so that we can be a force multiplier for them. You know, it's not working with a leader to say, oh, you're doing something wrong. I've been in that position where I want to partner. Like I want to be that person that can see around the corners that you just don't have the time to see around, and help you enhance your team. And so really that's it in a nutshell. You know, it's elevating that organization. That's going to create, you know, business success. It's going to create a better organization. I also do a lot of speaking around, you know, a lot of these different topics, around corporate culture, leadership, employees, you know, how can you become an agile organization? You know, how can you think about rewards and recognition differently than our classic terms? And then I love facilitating workshops too. I have a team. A lot of times I have to back off, you know, and send my team to do these workshops. But I love, going back to your earlier question around, you know, remote versus live. I love it when we can get into a room and just get that energy together, and you start to see that camaraderie and people really coming together. So that's what we do here at Leadership Canvas. You know, we do the full assessments, we do the coaching, we do the consulting, and we do the speaking.
Awesome. Great. Jared, you got anything?
Thanks again for coming on, Jay. It was definitely a pleasure to have you. Definitely.
Absolutely. Love your knowledge.
Learn some things to take away from this for sure. So thanks again.
Yeah, sounds good. And, you know, love to stay connected with y'all, and love the work that you're doing. I really appreciate you, you know, highlighting the voices of veterans and veteran businesses and business leaders. You know, I think the more that we can share, I have something that I have in mind for next year of kind of bringing cohorts together of individuals where we can share these types of things, you know, and help each other out.
Yeah, please include us in that.
Absolutely. I think it's something that's needed, because I don't know about you, but, you know, the term "we'll do more with less" has been happening now for 20 plus years. So I don't think anything's changing. It gets, you know, we have to continue to do more with less and less and less. And so that creates a real leadership challenge. And I think we have to come together, you know, as leaders to help each other solve these things. So
100% agree. Yeah. All right. Well, you gentlemen have a wonderful day. Thank you again, Jay, for coming on.
You bet.
Appreciate it, and love your knowledge and everything you had to say.
All right. Well, have a good one, guys. Take care.
All right. You
Thanks
too.
again, Jay. Welcome to the Business After Hours, where the ties loosen, the suit relax, and we talk business without the boardroom. Grab your favorite drink, kick back, and let's dive into the world of business after hours.